In the summer of 1998, St. Jude College was supposed to be completely empty, but the Southgate access terminal logs recorded 14 identification badges swiping through on the exact same night. Staring at the harsh, monochrome text reflecting off the terminal glass, Pendelton could hear it. The low, rhythmic static humming through the concrete floorboards beneath his boots. It was the undeniable frequency of power being bled, in real time, into the sealed corridors of the South Wing. He initiated a data pull from keycard access terminal number 7. The heavy dot matrix printer ground into life. It slowly spit out a physical log of the night's perimeter activity. Pendelton tore the perforated edge. 14 separate student identification badges had been swiped at the remote South Gate between 2 and 4 in the morning. 14 distinct magnetic signatures slicing through the dead of night. He cross-referenced the numerical data with the campus registry, dragging a calloused finger down the heavy paper stock. These were not local drifters. They were not contracted summer maintenance. The ink on the ledger confirmed every single identification number belonged to alumni who had graduated between 1982 and 1991. Bureaucratic ghosts. People carrying obsolete credentials from a decade past, silently bypassing modern security gates. The sustained electrical drain confirmed they were not simply wandering the grounds. They were pulling heat and light deep inside the building. The subsequent incident report detailed the forced entry into Hall C. The initial documentation noted the breach of a rusted padlock and the expectation of a pitch-black void inside the abandoned dormitory. But photographic evidence proved the corridor was methodically illuminated instead. Every third fluorescent tube hummed with a sickly pale light, casting long, stark shadows across the dust. The air was heavy and stagnant, yet laced with something unmistakably human. Room 204 was open. He stepped inside the narrow space. The beam of his flashlight swept across a desolate wooden desk, settling on a porcelain mug half filled with dark liquid. He reached out, hovering his bare hand inches from the ceramic. It was emitting a faint, undeniable heat. A forensic thermometer pulled from his utility belt later clocked the instant coffee at exactly 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Beside it lay an organic chemistry textbook printed in 1994. The spine was heavily creased. The margins were filled with complex molecular diagrams. Pendelton wiped his thumb across the page and pulled it back to reveal a thick smear of gray. The pencil graphite was entirely fresh. The residue of a mind at work interrupted only moments before the heavy doors of the hall had groaned open. This isolated sanctuary was not an overnight intrusion. Maintenance log 409-B, eventually retrieved from the campus archives, documented a staggering anomaly. 412 kilowatt-hours of unauthorized power had been siphoned across 3 locked floors during the month of June alone. They were living deep within the restricted infrastructure of the institution. Wedged carefully behind the rusted metal grate of the room's ventilation duct, Pendelton discovered audio microcassette number 3. The tiny magnetic tape contained 47 seconds of unbroken acoustic evidence. There were no voices. There was only the rhythmic, aggressive scratching of a graphite pencil, the crisp, methodical turning of heavy paper pages, and underneath it all, the wet, rhythmic sound of breath condensation echoing against the aluminum ductwork. The tape proved an unsettling reality about the anatomy of the room. The microphone had been deliberately pointed outward, aimed directly at the hallway. The occupants of Hall C were not simply hiding in the dark. They were meticulously recording the silence, listening to the heavy footsteps of the night watchman as he paced blindly through his rounds. He moved deeper into the corridor, stopping before the solid oak frame of dormitory door 310. The brass knob refused to yield. It was not jammed by rusted hinges or secured by an obsolete institutional cylinder. Forced entry later exposed a suffocating architectural reality. The heavy timber was double deadbolted from the inside. Illuminating the interior paneling, the true nature of the occupation became starkly visible. Scraped deep into the varnished wood were tight, aggressive clusters of fresh chalk tally marks. The occupants were not simply trespassing, they were living entombed. Methodically counting the hours in total isolation, they remained perfectly insulated from the perimeter they were actively monitoring. Pendelton never formally concluded his patrol. 5 days later, a solitary object was discovered resting on a stone desk in the main quadrangle. It was his leather-bound security notepad. The binding was severely stained with damp, creeping mold. The pages were pressed open to a final, quiet entry dated July 19th. The ink detailed no frantic pursuit or sudden violence. It contained a final, methodical cross-reference of the obsolete identification numbers. The last recorded sentence confirmed that the registration codes from 1982 and 1991 belonged entirely to students who had been reported missing on the very same campus grounds. If you find yourself drawn to these restricted records, leave a trace of your presence by subscribing. There are always more archives to unseal. We may never know who held the chalk behind door 310, but St. Jude's archives are vast, and another file is already open on my desk. Click the document on your screen to review the anomaly of the Mariana Trench relay.